So, good evening, everyone. I hope I am properly audible to you all. I said good evening. Am I audible properly?
Yes, you're the ma'am. Good evening.
Good
Yes,
evening.
ma. Good evening, ma. Good evening.
Good evening, madam.
Okay.
You are audible.
Okay. You people were not responding, so I thought I am not audible.
Ma, we are responding now.
Okay. So, thank you for your
You are audible. We
responses.
can hear you now.
Okay. I think how many have joined? 16, 17 people have joined. Shall we start or wait for another 2, 3 minutes?
Let's start, ma.
So, can you see the content on your screen?
Yes, ma. We can see the content. Block 2, cost accounting.
Yes, yes, yes. So this is what we are going to start today. And I hope everyone knows you have to write your name on the chat box. Okay, this will be marked as your attendance. Okay, so we are starting today with cost accounting. Cost accounting, it is the accounting related to the cost of production of a unit, or in terms, it can be the cost incurred on the total production. So when we talk about cost accounting, it is classifying the cost. When I say it is classifying the cost, it means that you need to find out what is the cost incurred in single unit of production. Okay, so when we try to find out or understand the cost concept, we need to also identify the elements which are included in the cost, the components which are included in the estimation of the total cost, and then we can define a product for sale on the basis of its profit. So if you start with the objective itself of this block states that to familiarize you with the process of determination of cost, particularly in a manufacturing concern. So this all we know that cost is concerned with the manufacturing of the product. So when we say that cost is concerned with the manufacturing of the product, that means we need to find out the cost at the factory in the manufacturing concern. Second important aspect of this block is there are certain costing techniques, and on the basis of this costing techniques we can reduce the cost. There are two ways to increase the profit. The first one is reduce the cost so that you can have more profit, you can generate more profit by placing more value to the product which is to be sold. The second way is to reduce your expenses. So we know that how cost can be reduced. There are wastages, there are more time taken to complete one product. We can reduce all this with efficient management, proper controlling techniques, and the second way to increase the profit is to increase the revenue. So what happens? People do not go for the long route, that is increase the revenue, because to increase the revenue you have to increase the sales. So what they try to do, they try to go with the shortcut, that is they try to reduce the cost. And in order to reduce the cost ethically, we need to know each and every aspect of cost that is included in the manufacturing concern. So if you go directly with the concepts, this is something which you people know, but at times we do not actually pay attention to them. So if we start with
When did Usman say that I stay here up to 10?
what happened, who is talking? Abrima, are you saying something to me? No. So cost accounting, it is concerned with the technique for attainment of cost of products or services on the basis of historical data. Yesterday we had seen how we are going to estimate the cost. Cost is estimated on the basis of the historic cost, because cost keeps on changing. So in order to find out what will be the cost that is to be taken into account, it is always the historic cost. So when we talk about costing, see, doing accounting for cost, it is a form of managerial decision. It aims to capture a company's total cost of production. How? By assessing the variable cost of each step of production. So we need to find out the cost which is incurred in each single step. We try to distribute the cost in the form of fixed cost and variable cost. I will give you the example. Fixed cost is a cost which never changes with the unit output. For example, whether there is a production for 10 units or 100 units, you have to pay rent for the building. Even if there is no production, then also you are required to pay rent. This is fixed cost. But if you talk about payment of wages, you hire labor, the payment made to the laborers are subjected only to production. If there is no production, less production, or more production, in such cases, the cost will also keep on fluctuating. If it is 10, if it is less production, you will require less labors, so you will pay less cost. If you hire more laborers, you have to pay more wages, so the cost will increase. So cost is basically defined on the basis of fixed expenditures and variable expenditures. So there, due to different technological developments in all the fields, nowadays there are cost reduction principle, which is within the periphery of cost accounting. So the cost accounting involves, the first step is finding the cost. It is termed as ascertaining the cost. Ascertaining the cost is finding the value of a product. Then we need to control the cost with all our managerial expertise, and then we need to reduce the cost. So when we talk about cost, cost is an important element because it is the only base which is going to determine your profit. So the companies are using cost accounting to identify all the variable and fixed costs which is associated with the production process. So it was first measure and record this cost individually. First we try to measure and then record them individually, and then compare the input cost. There are many types of cost which are involved in cost accounting. If you start with the first one, it is fixed cost, which I have already explained you. Next, we have variable cost. Then we have operating cost. And this way, all the different types of costs are taken into account. So in order to identify the cost, we need to identify the nature of the business or industry. Cost is basically on the basis of industry and the nature of the business. So I told you that when we try to find out the nature of the business or industry, and then the context in which it is issued. So when we start with different phases, the first phase of ascertaining the cost is prime cost. Prime cost, it includes the expenditure on direct materials, direct labors, direct expenditures. That means all the costs which are directly associated with the production process. So when money is spent on materials in termed as cost of materials, that's spent on labor as cost of labor, and so on. So in the first phase, when we try to find out, determine the prime cost, we take into account all those expenditures which have a direct relationship with the production process. So the use of the term cost without background information is quite misleading. Now we need to find out what are the elements which are included in the cost. What are the contents of the cost? The first content is material. So when we talk about the elements of cost, the first one is, I told, material. Material, it is the raw material which is the first element of cost. So the material may be in a raw form or in a manufactured state. It can be used as a direct as well as indirect. What are direct materials? All material that becomes a part of the finished product are known as direct material. So when the materials are in the raw form and they become a part of the output of the product, they are put in the raw form and then the output is in the physical form. They are known as direct material. So all material or components specifically purchased, produced or requisitioned from stores. So we need to classify the cost as primary packing material, partly produced or purchased component. The second one is indirect material. Indirect material, it is not directly used in the production. It is not the outcome of the physical input, but it can be printing and stationery, it can be oil and waste, and so on. The second one is labor. The second important element of cost accounting is labor. And when we talk about labor, labors are used for the conversion of materials into finished goods. So in order to convert the materials into finished goods, we need human effort. Automatically, the materials cannot be transformed into finished goods, even though it is totally mechanized. We need to put certain command, we need certain human efforts, and such human effort which transforms the raw material into finished product is called as labor. So labor are also direct as well as indirect. Direct labor are those labor which are directly associated with the production process, and indirect labor are those whose goods, produced or services are used indirectly, like the labors which are used in the construction, the labors which are used for doing some factory work or etc. So direct labor who are directly involved in the production process, and indirect labor like the labors whose human effort are taken into account for any of the work. Laborers always remember they are being paid wages. When we pay salary, it is indirect cost, it is office expenditure. Factory expenditure or factory cost, which we talk about primary cost, includes labor, includes your labor charges. And what is labor charges? It is your wages. There are several other expenditures also which occur, which are there for the production. So anything which is directly related to the machinery input, it is your direct expenses. And when the expenditures cannot be directly converted into product output, example, rent, light expenses, insurance charges, etc. So this is the cost management. You can see what is happening with Ebrima. Ebrima, what happens every time your mic is muted? So indirect expenditures. Here when we are talking about indirect expenses, I already told you that the expenditures which are not directly associated with the production. So if you see this flow chart, the cost, three main heads are there in the cost. What are these three main heads? It is materials, labor, and expenses. Three elements. All these three elements are further divided into direct and indirect. Direct element of cost are those items which are directly involved in the production process. Indirect, they do not form, they do not involve, they do not help in the production, but some or other way they are a part of the cost. So for all of this, when there are expenditures incurred, whether it is indirect material, indirect labor, or indirect expenses, all these indirect expenditures are called as overheads. All indirect costs are called overheads. So manufacturing organization, it is divided into three divisions: factory or workplace where production is done. If it is a manufacturing concern, the first step is factory or workplace where production is done. The second one is office and administration where the routine policy matters, the recording of the produced goods are done, and the last department is the selling and distribution where products are sold and then they are dispatched to the customers. So there are three ways in which the manufacturing organization is divided. So overheads may be incurred in the factory, in the office, or in the selling and distribution process. Again, I repeat, all the indirect labor, material, and expenses are termed as overhead. When we talk about the classification of manufacturing organization, the manufacturing organization is broadly divided into three divisions. The first division is the factory or workplace where production is carried on. The second one, where the recording of the produced goods are taken. And the third one is the sales and distribution unit where the goods and services so produced are finally dispatched to the customers. So overheads may incur at factory, indirect wahan it can be there in the factory. Indirect expenses, indirect labor, indirect material can be in office and administration department, and same it can be in the selling and distribution department. The overheads are of three types. The first one, because the manufacturing organization is of three types, so each organization may have their overhead. The first type of overhead is the factory overhead, and the factory overhead they include first, overhead itself means it is indirect. So it can be indirect material, it can be indirect labor, and it can be indirect expenditure. The office also same. When we talk about office administration overhead, it can be on indirect material, indirect labor, and indirect expense. What are the examples of indirect material in case of overhead of office? It can be printing and stationery, it can be rooms and dusters, it can be materials, etc. When it comes to indirect labor, the labor are the labor payment is made to the people in the form of salaries. Then the payment is made to the office manager, office accountant, clerks, etc. The third one, the third nature is indirect expenses. Indirect expenses which are not directly related with production. It can be lighting bill of the office, it can be rent charges, it can be insurance charges, it can be water charges, and so on. The third type, again, it includes selling and distribution. Just 1 minute. Okay, I hope now I am audible.
Yes, ma.
Okay. So I was talking about the selling and distribution overheads. So I hope it is now very clear what is overhead. All the indirect labor, indirect material, and indirect expenses involved in the production is termed as overhead. Am I clear?
Yes.
Now, can you see this flow chart? Overheads, factory, office and administration, selling and distribution. So, overheads had three components: factory, office and administration, selling and distribution. Under each overhead, we have indirect material, indirect labor, and indirect expenses. Again, when we talk about office administration, here also it is indirect material, indirect labor, and indirect expenses. So all these three broad heads, whether it is factory, office, or selling and distribution, they all have indirect material, labor, and expenditures. Now, components of total cost. We need to find total cost. We need to find total cost. Total cost is the total of all the types of expenditure which is included in identifying the cost. When we go for production, what are the types of cost that is involved in the production? So the cost is classified as prime cost, factory cost, office cost, and then the summation, the total of all these three gives you the answer of total cost. So when we talk about prime cost involves all the direct material, labor, and expenses. So it is the first flat cost. It is the basic cost. So the first one is prime cost. It consists of direct material, labor, and expenses. Second one is factory cost. In addition to the direct material, labor, and expenditures, there may be addition cost also involved in the factory, which may be factory overheads. That is indirect cost in the factory. So it can be indirect material, indirect labor, and indirect expenditures. So this cost is known as work cost, production cost, or manufacturing cost. After factory cost, the next cost that is determined is office cost. We add in the factory cost all the expenditures which are related to office and administration overheads. It is known as total cost of production. And in the total cost of production, when we add the selling and distribution overheads, the answer is, the output is termed as cost of sales. So if you see this, just look into this 6.3 components of total cost and you just try to understand what it is. Did you understood?
Yeah.
Did you understood this table? It is the
Yes.
bifurcation of your prime cost, factory cost, total cost, and the final output, that is cost of sales or total cost. You go on adding, you first take prime cost. In prime cost, you add the work cost. Then in work cost, prime cost plus work cost plus office and administration cost, and then add selling and distribution cost. You have to go on adding one after the another. So you are going to get the result as cost of sales, or this is the total cost. Am I clear now? If someone asks you what is prime cost, the constituent of prime cost is direct material, direct labor, and direct expenditures. Then if someone asks you what is work cost, when you add work overheads in your prime cost, you get factory cost or work cost. Then what is office cost or total cost? When you add your office expenditure in this work cost, it is your office cost. And in the total cost or office cost, when you add selling and distribution overheads, it gives you the result of total cost. This total cost is taken into account to identify the profit of a product. Am I clear now? Did you understood this concept now? I cannot listen. What happened, Ravi? Do you want to say something? You have raised your hands. Ravi, Bangshi, do you want to say something? You have raised your hand. Please speak, unmute yourself and then speak.
Yeah, with you, Doc. It's understood.
Yes, Khalid. Understood, Khalid?
Yes, it's understood, Doc.
Slightly, I think today it is more understandable than yesterday.
Yes, yes, of course.
Yes, Manuel, we will be doing it with the help of an example, okay? This is only the theoretical part to make you understand what are this cost, what are the contents of this cost. Am I clear?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, with the help of all these types cost element, prime cost, then we have work cost, that is factory cost, then we have total cost, and the last one is cost of sales. This all cost are presented in a form of statement, and that statement is known as cost sheet. Am I clear? So let us, as you said, you need to understand it with the help of an example. So let us take the first example. You need to prepare a cost sheet for a company with all these components of cost. Raw materials consumed, wages paid to laborers, directly chargeable expenses, oil and waste, wages for foremen, storekeepers' wages, that is electric and power, are given respectively. Next, lighting expenditures for factory is 1000 and for office is 400. Rent for factory is 4000 and for office is 2000. So total rent paid is 6000. We have repairs and renewals. For plant which is situated in the factory, the cost is 1,000, and for repair of machinery, it is 2,000, and the amount paid on maintenance of office premises, it is 400. Depreciation of office premises is 1,000. Plant and machinery, it is 400. We have consumable stores, that is indirect, manager's salary, director's fees, office printing and stationery, telephone charges, postage and telegram, salesman's commission and salary, traveling expenses, advertising, warehouse charges, and carriage outwards. Am I clear with this?
Yes, ma'am.
This is the content which is given in the question. So what is the performer? If you remember, we start with prime cost. I hope it is there in your mind.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so here the first one is prime cost. Then we will come to work or factory cost. Then the next one will be office cost or total cost. And the last component will be your cost of sales. So prime cost involves all direct material, labor, and expenditures. So here raw materials is 80,000. So if you start preparing the cost sheet, see, this is the pro forma of preparing the cost sheet. First column, it is going to be of particulars. Then the second column is the calculation, inner column, 2 columns, and the last amount column is the total amount of expenditure occurred. So first we start with direct material. When we start with direct material, it is a part of your prime cost. So direct material consumed was 80,000. Direct labor, which is paid in the form of wages, it is 20,000. And the third component, that is chargeable expenditures, is rupees 4,000. So in total, what is the total of prime cost? 80 plus 20 plus 4, that is 1,04,000. Do you have any doubt in this? Come on, tell me. Do you have any doubt?
No,
You
no, doc.
understand?
No, doc, but you are going very fast, doc.
Can you explain again, ma'am, on that part? I haven't really understood what exactly you have explained.
What you are saying, Isaac, I am not able to understand also. What you are saying?
Actually, I just need an early explanation on this chart on cost sheet. This sheet you have displayed.
You need explanation again?
Yes.
See, for getting the explanation, Isaac, you need to understand the classification of cost. When we talk about the classification of cost, the cost is classified on the basis of prime cost, factory cost, office cost, and last one, it is cost of sales. Prime cost includes all the cost which is involved in the form of direct material, labor, and expenses. Am I clear now? It is
Yes, we are clear.
for the production of a product. Then it comes work cost or factory cost. All the direct materials, labor, and expenditures are in your prime cost, and all the indirect expenditure, which is termed as overheads, they are in the form of work cost. Am I clear? When overheads, indirect material, labor, and expenses are added in prime cost, the answer that you get, it is your work cost or factory cost. I hope till this it is clear.
Yeah, it's clear, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. Next, on this work cost, we add the office and administration cost. When office and administration cost is added, the answer is your office cost or total cost. In this total cost, we add the selling and distribution expenditures, and the result is cost of sales. So this is the total pro forma for your cost sheet. Now in this question, you can see it was provided with direct material, direct labor, and direct expenditures. When you add 80,000, 20,000, 4,000 respectively, the answer that you get 1,04,000. This is the outcome of your all the direct labor, material, and expenses. So the answer which you get 1,04,000, it forms your prime cost. It is your prime cost. Am I clear? Till prime cost, is it clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now the second part, what I told you, all the overheads which are related to factory, indirect labor, indirect material, and indirect expenditures, they are to be added in your prime cost, and the answer that you will get is going to be your factory cost or work cost. Am I clear? So in prime cost of 1,04,000, you add factory overheads. The first one is indirect material in the form of consumables, that is 2,000. We have oil and waste in the form of 200 rupees. So first it is 2,200. Then indirect labor charges, that is wages, 2,000 and 1,000, it becomes 3,000. This 2,000, 1,000, it is given in the question. Then indirect expenditures, electric power, factory lighting, factory rent, all these expenditures are related to factory. Okay? We are not including the office expenses in factory cost. And last it is repairs, which is amounting to rupees 3,000. Next, depreciation. Depreciation is always charged on plant and machinery, and plant and machinery are in the factory. So the total expenditures which are included as indirect expenditures, labors and material or overhead, it comes to rupees 14,000. So when you add this 14,000 to 1,04,000 of your prime cost, you get the answer 1,18,000, and this 1,18,000 is your factory cost or work cost. Then we add the office administrative expenditures in this factory cost, which comes to nearly 9,500, like postage and telegram, telephone charges, office rent, office lighting, manager's salary. So this all when added to your factory cost, your answer is 1,27,500. Just have a look. So I hope till 1,27,500 it is clear. Then this is your total 1,27,500. This is your total cost of production, and in this we add selling and distribution overhead, all the expenditures which are incurred for selling the product, for distribution of the product, and this comes to 3,100. When it is added, then the answer that you get is your cost of sales, 1,30,600. This is your cost of sales. Am I clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Understood? Just go through the concept. I'm again coming back to the table which you need to understand what are the contents. Yes. This is the table. Just go through it. I'm just taking 2-3 minutes break.
क्या है अफ्रीकन लोग हैं?
So did you understood this table? Is
Yes,
it
ma'am.
clear?
Yes.
Okay. So the example is clear to everyone. We know how to
Yeah,
Yeah, it is clear.
Doc,
prepare
Doc,
cost sheet.
Yeah.
So rest all.
Doc, I have a concern. Doc.
You have a question, please feel free to ask.
Ye- Yes, Doc. My concern is on the arrangement of this sheet.
Arrangement of the sheet, okay.
Yes. I have seen that. I don't know if you can start from the beginning, Doc, please. From the beginning of the sheet.
No, the arrangement is first you have to start with the particulars column. Then you have
Okay.
one as the inner column for inner adjustment, the total of inner adjustment in the next inner column, and the last outer column is for the calculations related to prime cost, factory cost, office cost, and the final total cost. Only the final amount is in the outer column, rest all the adjustment is in the inner two columns. Is it clear now? Okay. Now this is just a mind twist. Is anyone saying something? Yes, Salome, you want to say something? Salome, you have raised your hand. Do you want to say something?
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, for me, I'm lost, ma. From the beginning of this, the whole chart, I'm lost because the content is just too much, and the calculations, how you are coming out with the total cost. I think I'm lost.
Salome, I have given you the format now that what we discussed right now. There is a format to get the total cost. This is the components of total cost. There is a prime cost. In that prime cost, we add factory cost. And then in the factory cost, we add office cost. And then in the office cost, we add all the selling and distribution expenditures, and the result is your total cost. So you should have the in-depth knowledge. What are the contents, what are the elements which are included in prime cost, what are the elements which are included in the factory cost, elements of office cost, and elements of total cost. Understood?
Thank you. Understood.
Okay, you just go through the content which is there with you. Then only once you read it, then the things will be more clear. So this is just a mind twisting question. We know what is to be added in what to get the prime cost, factory cost, office cost, and total cost. So now you tell me, can you add purchases in your raw material? From that, closing stock is minus, then raw materials consumed, direct wages, other. This is, they have given you, they have dropped few items, and then on the basis of the calculations, on the basis of your knowledge that what is to be included in what, you can have the answer. Am I clear? Are you able to listen to me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now I am coming to the next part. It is your classification of cost as fixed cost, variable cost, and semi-variable cost. Fixed cost, example, the fixed cost, it never changes with the change in the output. The examples are rent, insurance charges, salary paid to the management staff, etc. So fixed cost remains constant per unit of time. They decrease per unit with every increase in output and vice versa. The example is if 6,000 have been paid to rent for a factory building with an output of 1,000 units, the cost of rent per unit is rupees 6. But in case the output increases to 1,200 units, the cost per rent per unit will decrease to 5. So in case the output is reduced to 800, then it may also come to 7. It may increase to 7.5. So fixed costs sometimes are also referred to as period cost because they are committed cost and they are discretionary fixed cost. What is committed cost? The cost which arise out of possession of the plant, equipment, etc. Discretionary fixed cost, where we can have them on the discretion of the management. It can be advertising cost, it can be sales promotion cost, and so on. So when we talk about fixed cost behavior, cost is fixed to a certain unit. Variable cost is directly proportionate to the output. The increase or decrease will be in the same proportion in which the output of the product will increase or decrease. The examples of variable cost are direct material, direct labor, power, etc. So if the factory incurs rupees 1,000 on the raw material for output of 1,000 units, so the cost, the raw material per unit would be rupee 1. But if the output increases to 2,000 units, the cost of raw material would proportionally increase to rupees 2,000. So I'm just coming back to the fixed cost again. I hope everyone is listening to me. Otherwise, we will not understand.
Yes, yes, yes. We are
We're
getting you.
listening.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So the fixed cost, it is fixed irrespective of the units produced. On the basis of units, the cost per unit keeps on changing. So the example states that the cost is rupees 6,000. Okay, the cost is 6,000 to be paid for the rent of a factory building. Now, if this cost is incurred for a production of 1,000 units, then what will be the cost per unit? 6,000 divided by 1,000, it will be 6 rupees per unit. I hope the first step is clear.
It is clear.
Yes.
Okay. Now what I said, fixed cost will never change. So even if you increase the production from 1,000 to 1,200, in that case also, the total amount is going to be fixed. The rent is going to be 6,000. So again, when 6,000 is fixed and the quantity has changed, now this 6,000 we are paying against the production of 1,200 units. So if we divide 6,000 by 1,200, what happens? Your cost, which was previously rupees 6 for 1000 units, now the answer will be rupees 5. I hope you understood. That means with the increase in the quantity, with the increase in the units of production, the cost per unit is decreased. Am I clear?
Yes. Yeah, Prof. Sorry.
Yes, Manuel.
Yes. Sometimes this cost they can vary. It means the fixed cost they can be fixed in short term, because in long term we can see some
Yes, I
variable
will.
that can
Yes, Manuel.
they
I
can
understood
they
what you
can
were.
vary.
I understood what you were saying. That
Yes,
when we talk about that in the initial period we have a fixed cost, and then with the
of course.
change in the production or output, the cost will also change. So that part will be covered in semi variable cost. Okay,
Yes,
where
that's
where
why we can say that the fixed cost is they doesn't change in short term. It means
yeah, in the
after.
initial, yes,
Okay,
to a
yeah,
certain,
okay, thank
like
you.
if you have taken a building for rent, whether you are
Yes,
going for a production of 1000 units, 5000 units, or no production, you are going to pay
okay,
the rent for that building. Understood? But if you
yes,
have
that's
taken,
correct.
but if you have taken a building, say on lease, so in lease what happens, they will say till 5000 units if you are producing, you have to pay 6000. But as long the unit increases from 5000, even if it is 5001, there will be an increase in rent of 10%. So initially, up to a certain extent, it is fixed, and then in the second part, if there is a variation in the fixed cost, this type of cost is known as semi-variable cost. It means that it is the combination of fixed also and variable part also.
Thank you.
Okay. So it's my pleasure that at least you people are understanding. So now when I talk about this second part, that 6000 is paid against the production of 1200 units. Now how we calculate cost per unit? The total fixed cost is divided by the number of units produced. So you see the answer that you get, it is rupees 5. So what is the conclusion? That when the units are increasing, the cost per unit decreases. And this is what we believe in economies of scale. I hope many of you are working. So we all, when we are working, what happens? We always stress on more and more units to be produced. When more units are produced, the cost is less. But if you go for production of less units, then the cost will increase. And this is the economies of scale. This is the benefit of large scale production. You people are going to study economics. In economics, this topic will come, how we minimize the cost with the increase in the units. Am I clear? The third example, it states that if you reduce the units from 1000, 1200, if the units are produced 800, in that case also the rent paid is 6000. Now what change it is going to show in your books in the terms of cost per unit? If you divide 6000 with 800 units, you get cost per unit as 7.5 rupees. So from 6 to 5, and again there is a rise of 7.5 rupees. So the conclusion of fixed cost is, with the increase in the units of product, the cost decreases, and when the units produced decreases, the cost per unit increases. But in nutshell, there is no change in the fixed cost. The fixed cost remains the same. Am I clear now?
Very clear.
Okay. Now coming to the second part of this, it is your variable cost. What is variable cost? it will vary according to the units produced. It is going to vary, it is going to fluctuate according to the units produced. Now, what is the example? If the factory incurs rupees 1,000, it spends on purchase of raw material for 1,000 units. For 1,000 units of output, you require rupees 1,000 of raw material. So what will be the cost per unit? So you are going to divide 1,000 by 1,000. The cost per unit is rupee 1. Am I clear here?
Yes.
Now,
Yes.
good. Now, if the output increases to 2,000 unit, so there is an additional increase of 1,000 units. So when there is an additional increase of 1,000 units, you will be requiring proportionately more raw material. Okay, so more raw material when it is required. What was the cost? In this, we take the unit per unit cost. So per unit cost is 1,000. So when it is 2,000 units multiplied by 1, so what is your total cost? The cost incurred in the material is rupees 2,000. Similarly, if there is a decrease in the units had decreased to 800 units. So now what was the amount? 1 rupees per unit. So now what will be the cost of output? It will be 800 into 1, 800 rupees. So in fixed cost, the cost per unit is on the basis of fixed cost divided by units produced. In variable cost, the unit per price is fixed and it is multiplied with the units produced. Am I clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay. Now the third one, I hope third one is more clear because already you people asked what it is. The third one is semi-variable cost. Semi-variable cost means these are the costs that do not vary, they do vary, but after a certain proportion. Understood? They are the combination of both fixed and variable cost, like depreciation, repairs, light, heat, etc. To a certain extent, they are first fixed and then they keep on changing with the change in the units produced. And the last one, it is step cost. Step cost means that with each activity of production, the cost also changes. Am I clear? Suppose you have to go through 3 different checks in the factory. When it is the first check, it may be the the supervisor who is checking it. His salary will be different when it is going for second check, and again the first and second supervisor salary will differ when we are going for the final check. So with each activity of production, it keeps on changing. Am I clear till this?
Yes.
So now read this question. We will try to solve it. Read it. Try to understand what the question is stating. Have you read this question?
Yes.
So what it is? A company has given you the information related to 10,000 units of output. So what is the units of output? 10,000. Now you are required to calculate the total cost for 12,000 units of output. Am I clear? What
Yes.
happened? Who is talking? So 10,000 units output is given. You are required to calculate for 12,000. Variable cost is 50,000. Fixed cost is 30,000. And semi-variable cost is 80,000. In this 80,000, 50% cost is fixed. Am I clear?
Yes. It's clear.
Oh, clear. Okay. So we all know, as per the concept, that fixed cost remains unchanged with whatever is the units produced. Whether you are producing 10,000, 12,000, 15,000 or 5,000, there will be no change in the fixed cost, that is in 30,000. Only what will change? Cost per unit. When it is fixed cost, the cost is fixed, unit cost per unit. Cost per unit changes. When it is variable cost, in that case, cost per unit is fixed and the amount will change. Again, I am repeating, in fixed cost, the cost is fixed and per unit cost keeps on fluctuating, changing. When it is variable cost, in that case, cost per unit is fixed and the cost incurred, the total cost will keep on changing. And when it is semi-variable cost, to a certain extent, where it is fixed, the cost will be fixed, unit cost per unit will change, and then when it is variable, in that case, the variable cost per unit will be fixed and the amount will keep on changing. Am I clear? Am I clear?
Yes, Prophet.
So can we start calculation?
Yes, ma. Should proceed.
So this is the statement of cost, and in this statement of cost, you see, we are having it for 12,000 units. So first one is variable cost. Am I clear? First one we take variable cost, fixed cost, and then semi-variable cost. So variable cost is 60,000. I'm just coming back to the question. You can see what is the variable cost. Here it is 50,000.
50,000, yes.
Okay. This 50,000 is for how much units? 10,000 units. You remember? This 50,000, 30,000 and 80,000, it is given for 10,000 units. And on the basis of this information, we are required to prepare a cost sheet, a statement of cost for 12,000 units. So if I start with variable cost, what is the cost per unit? I told you in variable cost, unit per cost per unit is fixed. So what will be the per unit cost? Total cost is 50,000. This 50,000 is for 10,000 units produced. So when you divide 50,000 by 10,000, what is the cost per unit?
It's 3.
No, 50,000 divided by 10,000. It is 5. 5 times 10 multiplied by 5 is 50,000. Everyone, it is clear, it is 5?
Yes, ma.
Okay. So in variable cost, per unit cost is fixed. Now when you calculate this for 12,000 units, You remember what is the cost per unit for 10,000? For 10,000, the cost per unit, for 10,000, the cost per unit is 5 rupees. So for 12,000, 5,000 multiplied by 12,000, you will get the answer 60,000. You understood how we got this answer 60,000?
Yes, clear. 12,000 times 5 is 60.
One by one. Otherwise, it is a echo. Yes, first you start.
Madam,
Yes, Villa?
I need an explanation on how you got 60,000 rupees.
How we got 60,000, Villa?
Yes.
See, again I'm repeating, variable cost. In variable cost, cost per unit is fixed. So they have given you the data. You can see here for 10,000 units. For 10,000 units, the variable cost is 50,000. This is clear? As per the question, for 10,000 units, the total cost, variable cost is 50,000. Am I clear?
Yes.
If total cost for 10,000 unit is 50,000, what is the cost of one unit? So you divide 50,000 by 10,000.
Okay.
Isaac, Salome, am I clear?
Yes,
Yes, we're following, ma'am.
Okay. Now your 5 rupees is fixed in variable cost. What is per unit cost? Rupees 5. Now you are asked to find out the cost when there is an increase in the production. From 10,000 it is 12,000. So per unit is 5 rupees. So if it is 12,000, what will be the total cost? 12,000 multiplied by 5. Your answer will be 60,000.
Okay, thank you.
Very clear. Very clear.
Thank you, madam.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now coming to the next is fixed cost. Now what I said, fixed cost never changes, whether it is for 10,000, 12,000 or 5,000. In fixed cost, by the name only you can understand it is a fixed cost. So what is going to change? It is cost per unit. So in the first case, it was 10,000 units. So if you divide 30,000 by 10,000, it is rupees 3. In the next case, again you write fixed cost, the amount is going to be 30,000 only. There will be no change in the amount as it is a fixed cost component. What will be the cost per unit? 30,000 divided by 12,000. So it will come to 2.5. Am I clear with fixed cost? Now the last component.
Yes,
okay. Now the last component talks about semi-variable cost. And if you go to the question, it says that, I'm just coming back to the question, you can have a look first. In the semi-variable cost, it says that the total cost is 80,000. In this 80,000, 50% is fixed. 50% is fixed. So, what is 50% of 80,000?
40,000.
40,000. So 40,000 will never change whether it is 12,000, 5,000 or 10,000. The first component is clear?
Yes,
40,000.
yes.
Now what happens? Now from 80,000, if you subtract 40,000, you are left with another 40,000, and this 40,000 is variable. So this 40,000 is for how much units? 10,000 units. So if you divide 40,000 by 10,000, what is cost per unit?
4.
4. So 4. Now it is 4. So when it is 12,000, What will be the cost? 12,000 multiplied by 4?
48,000.
48,000. Very good. So you can have your answer here. Fixed cost is 40,000 and variable cost at a rate of rupees 4, it is 48,000. So your amount 80,000 is changed to 88,000. Am I clear?
Yes.
So when you
Yes,
add,
ma'am.
very good. So when you add this 60,000, 30,000 and 88,000, your total amount, total cost comes to 1,78,000. So this 1,78,000 is total cost for 12,000 units. So if you want to ascertain, you want to know what is the cost of 1 unit produced. So it is 1,78,000 divided by 12,000. You can see here the answer is 14.83. So when the answer is 14.83, that means the cost incurred to produce 1 unit, you have to spend 14.83 rupees. Now what we do, what is the profit, desired profit you want? If you want that at least in each unit, I should have a profit of 5 rupees. So you add 5 rupees in this 14 rupees and then it is your sale price. Okay, you have cost per unit. This is the actual cost. When you sell your product, you should have the sale price minimum 14 rupees so that you do not have any loss. If you quote the price below 14 rupees, that means that there will be a loss because the production cost per unit is 14.83 and now you are going to add your desired profit in this 14.83. It can be 2, it can be 3, it can be 5, it can be even 10. So whatever is your desired profit amount, you add it and the output is going to be your sale price. Am I clear with the concept?
Yeah, it is.
Others also respond. See, this you have to practice. If you do not practice, okay, then you will not able to understand. The main costing is, cost account is based on this only. Understood?
Excuse me.
Yes, tell me please.
Can you go back to the table? I lost my internet, so I just wanted to ask a question on something.
I'm just coming back.
Okay. Okay, so I understand how we got the fixed, the 40,000 or the fixed and the variable cost. I understand. And I also understand how we got the 88,000 rupees, but how we got the total cost of 1,78,000. Can you come again on that?
Yes, it's very easy. You have variable cost, add fixed cost and semi-variable cost. All the 3 costs that you have calculated, 60,000 plus 30,000 plus 88,000. When you total all these 3, your answer is 1,78,000.
Okay, thank you.
Am I clear?
Yes, Kriyama, thanks.
So, any doubt in understanding this cost sheet?
No doubt.
And then the statement of cost. In statement of cost, we take variable, fixed and semi-variable. And in cost sheet, we take prime cost, work cost, factory cost, and then the total cost in the form of selling and distribution expenses. This you have to remember. Just practice 1 or 2 questions, you will be able to do it. So, shall I end the class now?
No, ma'am.
What happened, I said?
I still have doubts on the 60,000. Of course, I understood in the first place the way how.
No, you have time. You can ask. You tell me what is the doubt.
On the 60,000, my
Okay.
colleagues are able to understand the way how we have gotten that. But is it possible if you can just illustrate the way how you ended up or you reached the 60,000?
Yeah, it's very easy. Okay. See what happens. You are given this 60,000 is for what?
Variable cost.
For variable cost. Now, when it is variable cost, variable means what? It is going to vary according to the production in units. According to the units produced. Am I clear? Variable cost, in variable cost, cost per unit remains same and the total cost keeps on changing. Am I clear?
Yes, I'm following.
So now the information that is given in the question, it is 50,000. The variable cost is 50,000 and this 50,000 is for 10,000 units. Am I clear till this?
Yes, clear.
Okay. So if total cost is 50,000 for 10,000 units, what is the cost of 1 unit? You tell me.
That is 5.
Yeah, it is 5. No, 5. 50,000 divided by 10,000. So it is
it's 5. Yeah, it's 5.
Okay. Now what I said in variable cost, cost per unit is fixed. So this 5 per unit is fixed. Am I clear? Now they have asked us to compute, do the calculations for an activity which is producing 12,000 units. Am I clear? They have given us the details for 10,000. Now we are supposed to calculate for 12,000. So when it is 12,000 units, just now you calculated the cost per unit. What is the cost per unit? Isaac, you calculated now. What is the cost per unit?
5. Cost
5.
5.
So what is the total units now for which you have to calculate?
12,000 units.
Very good. It is 12,000. So 12,000 multiplied by 5, your amount will come to 60,000.
Which is to 60,000. Okay, now I understand.
Understood? See, in variable cost, I am just repeating. In variable cost, the cost per unit never changes.
Yes,
okay?
Yes.
It is total cost which keeps on changing depending on the units produced. And in fixed cost, the total cost never changes. It is cost per unit which keeps on changing depending on the units produced. This is the basic difference in your fixed cost and variable cost.
Yes.
Am I clear to everyone? So it's good when you raise question now, we feel like, yes, at least we are giving something. And if you don't utter anything, it's very nice that you people at least respond.
We are clear, ma'am.
Clear? Anyone else?
No.
Yeah, everything is clear, yeah.
Sorry, ma'am. Hello, sorry.
Yes, Khalid. Who is talking? Okay, Manuel. Yes, Manuel.
Yeah. Okay, I was with you until here where we have 60,000. So after that, this fixed cost of 30,000 is the same above, right?
Yes, because fixed cost never changes.
Never change. Okay, that's good. So here, down here, we have semi-variable cost, and then
Yes,
we have another fixed cost. So now we have 40,000.
Yes, because what they have given, you can see in the first line, it is semi-variable
Okay.
cost. Semi-variable cost is 50% fixed. So when it is 50% fixed, it means that 80,000 50% is 40,000, which you can see here, and remaining 40,000 was for 10,000 units. So again, 40,000 divided by 10,000, your answer is rupees 4.
Yes.
So now, how many units for, you are doing the calculation for how many units? 12,000 units?
Yeah.
You are supposed to do the calculation for 12,000 units.
12.
Okay. So here we have,
so you multiply rupees 4 with 12,000, you will get the answer 48,000.
Yes, 48. Yeah. Okay, it's okay. Thank you.
Okay, semi-variable 50% is fixed and 50% is variable.
Okay.
I hope it's clear now.
Yeah, it's now solved. Thank you.
So how about the 88,000?
You can ask again and again. There is no such thing that yes, I will be embarrassed or something. No. If you don't understand, we are going to have the last day, the last session, last class of doubt clearing. So if you are able to perform at least 1 or 2 questions in the meantime, please get prepared yourself so we can discuss whatever is your problem in the last class. Am I clear?
Yes, ma'am.
So, can I end the class now?
Yes, it is okay.
I hope all of you have given your names in the chat box for attendance purpose.
Yes, we have written our name.
Okay, if anyone has missed, kindly, I am there for another 5 minutes. Please write your name in the chat box. Otherwise, your attendance will not be marked by Smriti ma'am. And if it is done, you can leave. So thank you everyone, okay? Thanks for your patient listening and understanding. We will meet tomorrow.
Thank you.